Once upon a time, I did a doctorate, so I teach Bible studies in Dublin where I am. That's what keeps me off the street. And that might sound very fancy, doing a doctorate. I'm sure those of you who haven't done doctorates think it's very fancy. People who've done doctorates are always aware that you don't get through a doctorate because you got intelligence, but because you persevere, and it's like pushing sand, or as one priest I met once upon a time said, doing a doctorate is like digging up bones from over there and burying them again over there. And I remember at one stage I was very depressed by the whole thing, and I was 38 years old, and I was still doing what I had been doing when I was 4 years old. I was reading and writing and reading and writing and reading and writing. And all my contemporaries were raising children and running businesses and being promoted, and there was I reading and writing like a 4-year-old. And I said to God once upon a time, I said, God, I am useless. And God said to me, yes, you are. But he said it in a nicer little way than that, because my doctorate was on various names in the book of Genesis. And the first name of a saint, you could say, in the book of Genesis is Abel, who, of course, gets killed by his brother Cain because of Cain's jealousy at Abel's closeness to God. And the name Abel itself means a puff of breath. So if you think of your breath on a frosty morning, can't think of it in July, but on a frosty morning, and then as soon as you see it, it's gone. And of course, Abel in the book of Genesis, as soon as you see him, he's gone. And even he, the first of the saints, is no more than a puff of breath. So what am I? God said. But of course, being a Christian, when we realize that we're just a puff of breath, we realize that we're a puff of breath that God is watching. And God himself has given immortality to this puff of breath. So we of ourselves are useless. We come and we go. The history of the world, we leave no trace behind. But God is watching us with his love. And so the first reading today says, anyone who fails to love can never have known God, because God is love. And that love of God is the secret of why we are. So it's the love of God himself that set all the stars in motion. That's the motor power behind everything, is his desire that we should be, that the stars should be, that the grass in the field should be, that the insects should be, and that we too should be. God is love. And so, in that sense, life has no meaning except that we are loved. And at the same time then, of course, we have no purpose except, in some sense, to repay that love in some form or other. So Martha is very famous, as you know, not the gospel that we just read there, but the gospel also where Jesus comes to be a guest in her house, and she sets herself to serve Jesus. And as she sets herself to serve Jesus, she's looking at her sister, Mary, over there, and Mary's smiling and laughing and chatting, and she's working at the pots and the pans, and she's sweating. And the more she works to serve Jesus, the angrier she gets. And the angrier she gets until she snaps at Jesus and she gives out to him. So I wonder, does anybody here recognize the fact that the more we serve the Lord, the less we get to like him? That the more we serve him, the more we feel sorry for ourselves that we ever set ourselves to serve him whatsoever. And in that sense, we experience what Martha is doing. And it's important for us always, I think, and not only is it important for us, but it's a liberation for us to realize that of ourselves we are only a puff of breath. That if I don't do something, God will get somebody else to do it maybe. Or he'll leave it undone and he'll work his providence around it in some sense or other. But when God allows us to serve, or when God calls us to serve him, whatever way, however useless it might be, it is his gift to us as a way of turning our minds towards him. Because what Martha learnt in that first meeting with Jesus, where she snapped at him because he wasn't telling her sister to help her, is what she learnt eventually in the second gospel, the one we just read today, where she speaks about the resurrection. And she gives Jesus that space where Jesus says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. So he really is everything that makes sense out of our lives. We of ourselves are only a puff of breath that comes to be and is passing away. And if it wasn't for his love watching us and keeping his eye on us and giving us immortality, then we would be just that puff of breath. But he is the resurrection and the life, who makes sense out of everything we do. And so we should never serve the Lord in a way that causes us to like him less or to feel sorry for ourselves. We should always remember to look back at Jesus on the cross and in his resurrection as the one who gives meaning to all our service and gives joy and immortality to this puff of breath.